In a time before our own, with things to be seen that haven't been seen since, grew an ordinary orange tree. And around it grew 9 other orange trees, and around them grew 12 others, fashioning itself to resemble a pretty little orange grove, around which grew an ordinary town, going about their ordinary business, much as folks do now. But the townsfolk of our story walked with a particular bounce, a particular attitude, a peculiar way, which seemed to resemble most happiness. And their quiet happiness came about from the pretty orange grove in the center of their town. The townsfolk took such pride in their citrus patch, and felt that an ordinary day, an ordinary time of day, was an occasion when occurring in that grove. They liked to sit on their benches there and watch their weddings go on. They liked their town council meetings there. They liked their picnics, their potato sack races there. They liked their lovers after dark there, their goodbyes and hellos there. They liked to dance around holding hands, train their dogs to fetch and pass out their end-of-the-term report cards there in the grove. One day, a girl of the town was needing to stretch her legs and decided it'd be better stretching them down to the grove. This was her favorite time to be under and among the fragrant trees, because at this particular mid-afternoon hour no one else was there. Maybe that old man napping with his head back and mouth open with the pages of a book still spread on his lap, or some skinny-bones dog chewing dried fallen branches into good fetching sticks. This girl's favorite pastime when she was alone in the grove was the same as nearly every townsperson. She, like most folks, loved to practice the art of eating oranges. There was the very common picking of the orange with one's hand in order to peel and eat in an everyday fashion. There was the shaking of a trunk of a tree to encourage oranges to fall to the ground to be picked up and eaten. There was also the more unconventional laying on one's back to wait for a fruit to fall into one's mouth to be eaten, rind and all. And so just as the girl had settled on a spot on the sunny grass to wait for an orange fruit, she heard a strange breezy sound which made her turn her head. Coming upon her from a far ways off with a slow and careful walk was a child. A strange child. A stranger. Someone not from the town or from any other place the girl had read about. The child no older than 7 and alone, without anyone holding her hand or a suitcase or even a name tag reading "Hello, I am," was coming even closer still. She had sun-tawnied hair and a complexion dark with freckles, plain knickers and a plain blue t-shirt. Her boots didn't look that worn in, and certainly didn't describe that she had walked from very far. As she drew near, the girl of the grove could see that the child had black eyes, black in the center and white all around. "What's your name?" the girl shouted, not altogether friendly when the child was still a good ways off. The child didn't answer or even shrug her little shoulders as she continued walking toward the girl and the grove. "I said, what's your name? Where are you from? Who's with you?" Then, without a second response, the girl jerked to her feet and started at the child with even steps, then deciding on the way it'd be best not to scare the strange child. The girl of the town and the child of the world stopped about a foot from each other and squared off, the girl eyeballing the stranger up and down in the middle of that sunny afternoon. After some time of nothing but staring, the girl decided the child wasn't so scary and was probably dim in the head, or at least certainly couldn't speak, and after all, wherever it is that she came from, she must be hungry, and so took her hand, tiny and leathery, in her own, and led her to the grove to introduce her to oranges. Despite herself, the girl had fun, sitting with the strange child on the grass, heads upward, waiting for fruit to fall, and she softly laughed under her breath, watching the child shimmy up a fat branch, shaking as she stretched out her little elbow, arm, and hand to get at that finest, orangest orange. They passed the time together, deciding to wait to eat the fruit until they had collected a nice-sized pile that they could sit down right in front of and dig into. And that's just what the girls did. Juice streamed out of the town girl's happy mouth, which was smacking noisily and barely ever closing. She was blushing and dreamy when she looked out of the sides of her eyes to see if the child was just as happy. But instead, what the girl saw initially shocked her into a state of barren silence, which preceded a rage so profound tears burst out of her eyes, an enormous anger completely unfamiliar to the girl. The child was spitting the seeds out onto the ground in front of her, down the front of her own shirt, onto the girl's half of the oranges, and everywhere without care or reason. The girl rocketed to her feet and stood there just shaken, unable to explain even to herself why what the child was doing was wrong. But no one in the town, no one who had ever lived in the town, no one anywhere had ever spit out the seeds, and certainly not onto the ground. This was a crime against everything the girl knew to be true and wholesome. The child noticed she was suddenly sitting in shadow instead of sun, and looked up carefully to meet the hate-filled gaze of the girl. The girl lunged at the pile of uneaten oranges, took one into her fist, and hurled it square at the forehead of that freckled child. Smack! It hit with certainty, and was already leaving a pink stain in the shape of a circle. The child had already half risen in a gesture to cover her face and head with her bare arms, and was then stumbling in the direction she had come from. The girl blindly, without knowing what she was doing, made a basket of her own shirt by holding up the hem with one hand, while she was squirreled all the oranges in with the other hand. Picking the last one off the grass, she threw it hard as she could at the child's diminishing back, and hit her mark with a thud that split the rind so just a little juice seeped out. The strange child fell half to her knees and rose again, and this time began to run. But the townsgirl was bigger and much faster, and fueled by passion, and hard as she could threw one fruit after another at the retreating child, hitting her almost every time on the shoulder, on the crown of her head, on the back of her thigh, hard on her ankle, again and again, until the strange child was out of sight around the bend, or until that girl ran out of oranges. It's hard to say which. The girl crumbled where she stood, exhaled with relief, and began to sob. Time passed, and among the years, the girl returned to the spot just beyond the grove where it had all happened. She liked to go there in the mid-afternoon when it was likely she'd be alone. It didn't take long before the ground on that spot began to change. Small green shoots first appeared, which grew longer and more brown, and then rough and hard as each shoot split itself and grew branches and then leaves. And by the time that second grove was declared a grove by the townsfolk, the girl was fully a woman, returning ever so often. Any time she felt like stretching her legs, the grown girl would find a sunny patch in and among the fragrant trees to sit and stare blankly as children and old folks practiced the art of picking and eating oranges.